So, good evening, friends. Welcome once again. And Jayaji last weekend brought us to the chapter The Sovereign Lord of All, where Krishna is describing his nature, and Arjuna, symbolic of the universal devotee, the devotee who is interested in knowing what lies beyond this body, beyond the seeming joys and sorrows of this world, is very curious, and Krishna is guiding him. And it does not fail to enthrall me each time I read this book to simply come to appreciate that God Himself, through our Guru, wrote this book. That, many times people have this doubt, which is understandable in the spiritual evolution, that does He exist? How can I know He exists? And here we have a whole book, 700 stanzas, word by word, written. And this is very, different from any other book, the Bhagavad Gita, because it is a true scripture and it applies on every level. And today actually, but I'll be reading from, you might say, a more esoteric chapter than practical, but I'm sure there are many tips and teachings we can receive from here. This chapter is called From the Unmanifested to the Manifested. But it's very important for us to sometimes even go into the esoteric aspect, you might say, because it stretches our mind. I do not claim to, I'm not making any claims that we will understand everything that we are reading. But like I said, each time we read, each time we have a question, often I've seen like with meditation practice, we do something, let's say in the morning, but its fruit comes in the evening when a situation comes where we do well, we perform well, we are proud of ourselves. And likewise it is with these teachings, that the more we read, the more we ponder on them, meditate on those words, it stretches our mind, and ultimately it also, by stretching our mind, stretches our consciousness. So there are 11 verses I'll be covering today, and I will go through them in pieces of 2 or 3 each time. So here is chapter 10 of the Gita, and the first 3 verses. The blessed Lord said, O mighty armed Arjuna, hear now my supreme utterance. Speaking for your highest good, I will say more to you, who have listened with joy. Neither the multitude of gods, angels, nor the great sages in their human state know me in my unmanifested state. I am their source and origin. Whoever realizes me, however, unborn and without any beginning, as well as even now the Lord of creation, has conquered delusion and is sinless, though he inhabit a human body. So here we are with the first 3 verses where Krishna, as he mentions previously also in the Gita, he says to the spirit that is uncarping, non-carping, I reveal myself. And he's saying the same words to Arjuna in a different way over here, that you who have listened to me with joy so far, let me tell you a little bit more. And it is extremely important for us. You see, Master once said to his disciples, he said, God does not mind your faults. He minds your indifference. Likewise, we may say, I remember, so when actually Swami Kiranandaji was in Pune, 2009 it was, and he was recording the first series from this Bhagavad Gita, and I think it was the first series, I'm not sure, and he was giving these explanations, commentaries, and we were all sitting there, and because 2009 was, you might say, you will know, it was the beginning of the work in Pune, there were many devotees, and many of them were very young, even in their age. And I remember, even years later, people remembering those beautiful moments we had with Swamiji and saying, oh my goodness, I cannot even think how childish I was, how foolish I was, how spiritually ignorant I was. Or, somebody asked me years later from that, who was part of that gathering, by the way, what's a chakra? I always hear chakras. And here we could be in the company of Swamiji listening to the commentaries directly, and not know it. But why were we there? Well, it was our good karma, but also we were there again and again because we simply loved to listen. We were listening with joy. It was His joy which was very infectious. And at the end of these 11 verses, Swamiji mentions on the importance of God's grace and Guru's grace. And he makes that point at another time in the Gita that very few people realize how important is the grace of Guru. What role does it play even in our day to day life? Often we, even as devotees, are awakened to that thought by the realization that, today something special happened. Guru's grace was there. Well, where is our breath coming from? Where is the ability to recollect memory coming from? Where is the ability to comprehend and stretch our imagination to grasp these great realities coming from? It is all coming from God's grace. It is all coming from Guru's grace. The point I was trying to make over here was, in his company at that time, I remember a devotee years later was going through very difficult times, and she said to me that I was so happy in Swamiji's company when I knew nothing about the spiritual teachings, when he was, dictating these commentaries. And I said, well, that was not to your credit, it was, or, entirely, it was Swami's grace. And I said, you can call on his grace even now. Yes, it's slightly more difficult because the physical presence is not there, but it is very much there. The Guru's grace helps. So anyway, you can almost reimagine how Krishna is dictating something and Arjuna is sitting. Arjuna is the devotee, Arjuna is us, and we are sitting and receiving these teachings in a spirit of joy. And then he goes on to say, Krishna says that very few know me in my unmanifested state. Now, in India, Kriyanandaji used to say that there are over 850 translations of the Bhagavad Gita, and one may wonder why another one is required. Well, of course, this is our Guru Paramahansa Yoganandaji's teachings, and we know him, and others will come to realize him in time to be a great yoga master. Great not just because he was great because his power, the clarity of his teachings, the practicality and simplicity is very inspiring. Almost everybody who sincerely has sought an answer in life, I've seen on the path I help at the Pune center, I have seen that they are immediately benefited. Recently we had a weekend affair, 600 new people came there. They did not all come for the meditation class after that, but they came. We sold so many books. So people are interested, they love him, and because he is very easy to understand, people can relate to him. But Swami said that Master never compromised on the teachings. For example, here in the Bhagavad Gita, in this verse, Krishna is saying that very few know me in my unmanifested state. And we may sometimes think, well, it's okay for me to love my Guru's personality, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing, no doubt about it. Actually, Krishna says, be attached to me, and that me resides in the Guru. So, on one level, it is very good, but we should understand the principle of impersonality over there. But it also is important for us to understand that Guru or God is no form. He is beyond. He is in all forms, but in his true essence, Krishna is saying over here, he resides in the unmanifested form. The reason we want to go in the unmanifested form is because there is only and only rest over there. Yesterday, somebody came to our satsang for the first time, and the person was saying that for many years I have thought about this concept of eternal peace. I have felt it at different times, for different durations, not eternal, but it comes, it goes. I have read books, I have listened to talks. I am now coming to the point of even now questioning whether this concept which came to my mind suddenly one day is even possible. And I said to him, oh, absolutely. I said, I will not say it is easy, but I said it is absolutely real. It is absolutely possible. It is the very definition of God. And I said, Yoganandaji taught a technique called Hong Saw, which he used to practice for hours as a day. At a day as a boy, and I said, you can touch peace. Its specific gift is one of peace. And I said, it brings the heart ultimately to complete rest. It brings the breath to complete rest. And I said, in that state, it was called Vishwas, without breath, we attain nothing but peace. We attain calmness. It is a state of samadhi. And I said, I urge you to. He had come with a friend, so it was more easy to, you might say, convince him. I said, come to meditation classes. And I said, don't give up. Paramahansa Yogananda said, in the beginning, we touch momentary peace in meditation. Other times, we are restless. He says, if you meditate more, you will touch it in other situations where earlier you were ruffled. Then he said, if you give yourself enough months to a few years, you will be half peaceful, half still, disturbed or restless. He says, but towards the end of one's life, after decades of practice, a yogi is not ruffled by anything. That eternal peace is what we all are looking, and that is what Krishna is saying, that very few people know it. But those who know, here he says, who has realized me as one who is unborn or without beginning, they are the true saints, true awakened sons. And such a one was Paramahansa Yogananda ji. Swami Kriyananda gives his example that any saint, Jivan Mukta, Param Mukta, Avatar, takes a cloak of humanity. You might say that it's like when a child is learning to talk. You will see the mother also starts saying, oh, ba, 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 la, 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 la. She knows very well how to speak different languages, but she is going to speak in the vernacular that the child understands. She comes to his level. Likewise is a guru who takes on, guru is God. God takes on that cloak of humanity, personality, to commune with us, to inspire us, to teach us how to speak in the language of God, and then we grow with Him from there. And Swami says that when you look at a saint, their eyes are most calm. Yogananda ji's eyes were calm, he said. His voice was very calm. He was never disturbed. He could, in a moment, go back into that state of samadhi, that such a one alone, Krishna is saying, understands me. Let's go further now to the next two verses. Krishna says, discrimination, wisdom, calm clarity, forgiveness, truthfulness, sense control, inner peace, joy, sorrow, birth, death, fear, courage, harmlessness, equanimity, serenity, self-discipline, charity, fame, notoriety. These states, vastly diverse as they are, derive from my one self. They are modifications of my one essential nature. That Yogananda ji would say, granted, it is very difficult to feel God, to understand Him. Understanding, I think, is beyond our mind. Feeling, yes, we can feel Him. But he would say, he explained even this for curious minds. He said, God is without vibration, unmanifested. Then he says, his consciousness, his awareness, you might say his all-potent power. Somebody once asked Yogananda ji, who created God? Master says, that's a wrong question. He says, you can ask, what did God create? How did God create? But who created God? Each one has to come to terms with the understanding that God cannot be created. God was, is, will be. And here Krishna is saying that out of me, everything has come. All those qualities. It is so amazing. Once somebody told me that the moment he realized God exists, everything became very simple. Because God exists. God alone exists. We will come in the end, final verse, to realize that we simply do not exist. How can we exist except without understanding that it must be God in an ignorant form living inside us? And then we come to develop unconditional, ever increasing, ever new devotion. That, oh my goodness, this is not my problem. Maybe it is God's problem, and I can help resolve it. Swami used to often say that when he was walking on the streets, he would see God in everybody, and he said he felt so much love for people. And he said, I saw God in everybody, but he was sleeping. And then Swami says that my job was to teach my Guru's teachings and help God awaken himself. It's a wonderful Leela, it's a joyful Leela for God. So here Krishna is saying that from the unmanifest, everything that we see in manifestation is him. He goes on to say, the seven great rishis, the primeval four, and the 14 manus, who are considered, by the way, the beginners or the progenitors of mankind, are all modifications of my nature, born of my projected thought, endowed with creative powers like mine. From these progenitors come all the life forms on earth. That once again he's saying, I started explaining that God is without creation, beyond creation. He is vibrationless, and then his thought vibrates. He gives it much more energy, it becomes energy. The thought takes on, you might say, it's an energetic thought, you might say, it's a coalition. And given much more energy to vibrate and condense, Yogananda said it becomes solid matter. And he said that we can, by retracing our steps, come to realize God. And the first step is to realize ourselves as energy. To feel that, oh, today my energy is not good. And we use our will, we use our thought, we use our mind to raise our energy. And slowly, slowly, in meditation especially, but also in selfless service and calm devotion, we come to feel those moments of peace which are simply not to be found or discussed in the world outside, because there is just too much movement, and God is that movement, but the real He, which Krishna is hinting that very few know, the real me, He's beyond that. I remember when I was new on the path, many people tried to dissuade me from joining the ashram and committing myself more seriously by using this very often quoted statement of in India, God is everywhere. Why do you have to go somewhere to find Him? Why do you have to do something? Actually, just last week, one of our Kriyaban's husband wrote to me a letter, and I had invited everybody for the weekly group Kriyaban meditation. And he said, sir, I think Kriya is not the way to find God. He says the way to find God is a Kriya. He says Kriya means action. How can you find God through action? Go beyond action. And I am going to write back to him that is exactly what Kriya says. You have just literally taken its meaning. Kriya is inward action. And Krishna says to become a Brahmin, we have to first be a Kshatriya. To reach the state of actionlessness, which is to say outwardly it doesn't seem you. He said you have to be intensely, calmly active in this world. So that's the interesting thing over here, that God is saying, Swami says that Krishna is here saying that He does not directly, you might say, come and create you and me and this world. He works through channels. He works through, and now we don't have to go in the details, the scriptures, ancient Indian scriptures speak of that, but we won't go in that the rishis and the 14 manus and the different avatars, they descend to carry out God's will. Then Krishna goes on to say, he who realizes the truth of my prolific manifestations and the creative and dissolving power of my divine yoga is unshakably united to me. I am the source of everything. From me, all creation emerges. Realizing this great truth, the wise, awe-stricken, adore me. You see, the same thing which that friend had discussed, that he was struck with awe at what existed, what God might be, and it is often the wise devotee. It is when we are in ignorance, we think we are the center of the universe, we are the only reality, everything refers back to us. But when we come to realize the great truth of God's possible presence, even when we are contemplating, it just opens a vista which cannot help but create adoration and awe for everything that is around us. Swamiji says the true awe is to comprehend the infinite throbbing ocean of bliss that must be existing behind this creation, making it ever new each time. He goes on to say in this next verse, their thoughts engrossed in me, their beings surrendered to me, enlightening one another and conversing of me. They are ever contented and filled with joy. What greater glory, what greater action, what greater purpose to life than to discover that God exists and to experience Him, share Him. Swamiji defined discipleship, a devotee's true service, as feeling the Guru's joy in the heart, and then he says, carrying it everywhere, sharing it everywhere. And it's so beautiful that when, let's say, more than one saintly people come across each other in each other's company, they don't gossip, they don't communicate of lesser things, they enjoy each other's company, they appreciate the way God has expressed Himself so fully in each other. To those who are attached to me, isn't it interesting he's saying attached to me? To those who are attached to me, only to me, and who worship me with love, I impart that discernment of wisdom by which they can attain me completely. Out of pure compassion, that is, out of selfless gift of love, with no admixture of compulsion, I, the Divine One who dwells in all, set alight in their hearts the blazing lamp of wisdom, which banishes their darkness of ignorance. That was the 11th verse. And here we may now comprehend what Krishna is saying, that through the compassion he feels for us, through the compassion of a guru, guru is an expression of God's compassion. Love, yes, but love made more personalized, in that we call out for divine understanding and a guru comes. God sends a guru as a compassionate expression that go, awaken them, share with them, express your joy, make them realize that their sufferings and sorrow were because of egoic attachment. And when they surrender themselves, when they are engrossed in me, when they are attached to me, when they serve me, God, through the Guru, then they can attain me. And the important thing in that paragraph I'd like to comment is, it is out of compassion that He awakens us. There is nothing you might say worthy we can do to claim our final awakening in God. That, oh, I've done this much, you must awaken me. Yes, as a child, as a friend, we can demand that lovingly, but it is mathematical. And that grace, when it comes, is an expression again of God's compassion. Swami used to say, you have to understand, in the final analysis, we simply do not exist. He says a devotee of all people, of all mankind, is trying to get rid of that I consciousness. Ultimately, that is the way which Yogananda says becomes crushing in its nature. And he says, how do we do it? What did the Guru tell us? What is good for our nature? What might be the unique way for us to offer ourselves? And then God says, I have taken deep note of what you are doing. And now that you have started, like he began in the beginning, O Arjuna, O mighty armed one, now that you have begun enjoying what I am saying, and so far you have come along with my teachings, I will bestow this grace upon you. May God and Guru's grace always be.